With sparkling eyes and perfect comic timing, Coleman was an immediate star. His life from then on was marked by a variety of health and legal problems. His kidney disease required dialysis and at least 2 transplants.
For decades, we've been nurtured by the belief that fame is the only path for a person of color to gain global recognition, a golden ticket out of the darkness of injustice. Hollywood has painted a dazzling paradise of polished suits, glamorous silk gowns, and billion-dollar contracts. But have you ever wondered what we're really witnessing behind the glamorous facade that the world celebrates? A symbol of pride, or just a soul being burned alive for the amusement of the audience? You wouldn't believe your eyes if you saw a famous singer collapse and die amidst applause, only to have their body sold off by imposters posing as fans right in their hospital bed, profiting from their last drops of blood. Horrifyingly, a cinematic princess is now a toothless psychopath wandering the streets, begging for pennies to fuel her drug addiction and suffering from illness. And most painfully, the one who once dominated Woodstock is, ironically, a skeletal ghost, languishing in a dilapidated truck like a discarded piece of junk thrown into a deep abyss of oblivion. Ultimately, is fame a sweet cup of nectar for the victor, or is it a magnificent pyre, where the artist is forced to use their decaying body and bleeding soul as fuel, only to warm a world already cold and cruel? Join us as we uncover the most brutal truths in 50 before and after photos of black legends to see how the spotlight has destroyed, eroded, and crushed their lives so brutally. Look at these 2 photos. Can you believe they are the same person? The stark contrast between them is not just a visual shock, but an insult to the trust of all who once loved this child, those who once considered him an icon of innocent joy and gentleness. The first picture shows Gary Coleman in his prime during the Different Strokes era, a little angel with big, mischievous eyes, chubby cheeks, and a sweet, endearing charm. In his bright yellow sweater, he was the son, the grandson of every black family, a small talent who could capture the hearts of the entire nation with his intelligence and a smile that warmed every room. And yet, all that brilliance seems to be nothing more than a cruel charade when we compare it to the police department's archived photo in the second picture. Gary was arrested on domestic violence charges involving his young wife, Shannon Price. The cruelty wasn't in the wrinkles of time, but in the shattered state of a soul exposed through his disease-scarred skin and eyes blazing with rage. Behind that melancholy gaze lay the consequences of chronic glomerulonephritis, a disease that had plagued Gary since the age of 6, keeping his body perpetually confined to a 1.42-meter-tall child. The dazzling glamour of the screen masked the reality that Gary had undergone 2 failed kidney transplants and painful dialysis sessions during breaks on set. While fame turned Gary into a money-making machine, his adoptive parents and manager secretly embezzled almost all of his $18 million fortune. In 1989, instead of enjoying the fruits of his labor, Gary had to endure a 4-year legal battle for justice, only to receive a small fraction of his losses and be forced to declare bankruptcy in 1999. The hateful gaze in this prison photo is the final farewell to a gifted talent ruined by the very prized possession of being a child star. The tragedy of premature fame, where a child pays the price for being thrust into the bloodthirsty cycle of celebrity before learning to protect himself. This heartbreaking transformation of the star, once considered America's darling, exposes the harshness and cruelty of the entertainment industry, often shrouded in glamour and fame, that drains a child's innocent smile for top rankings, then casually discards him like a toy when he is no longer useful. We are entering the darkest corners of Sly Stone's life, the man who once held the soul of a generation at Woodstock, only to plunge himself into the abyss of ruin. Let's rewind to Woodstock in 1969, where the singer possessed a wise face, a vibrant smile, and the free spirit of a hero who held the hearts of a generation of American audiences. But let's set aside those dazzling scenes and confront a reality darker than any horror movie. The painful truth is that after decades of cocaine and PCP abuse, Sly Stone had become a wreck, a gaunt face, wild, haunting eyes, and a withered body unrecognizable from the king of yesteryear. Bitterly, the price of peak glory was extreme loneliness, forcing him to admit that he used drugs not for creativity, but to escape the emptiness of a world that only worshipped his shadow on stage. This tragedy reached its peak of humiliation when the legend who once earned millions of dollars had to live a precarious life in a dilapidated truck, homeless and dependent on the kindness of a family in Los Angeles. Even when justice smiled upon him with a $5 million lawsuit in 2015 against his unscrupulous managers, the spotlight once again turned its back. Much of that money was swallowed up by debt and exploitative contracts, ultimately throwing a music legend with a multi-million-dollar fortune into a life of abject poverty in the heart of glamorous Los Angeles. Look at the scene in the Motown studios of the early 1970s, where young Michael, with his naturally vibrant afro hair framing his adorable chubby face, stood on tiptoe to reach the microphone, singing "I'll Be There," with a purity and sweetness that took the entire nation by storm. His sparkling eyes, innocent smile, distinctive broad nose, and healthy tan melted the hearts of many art lovers, leaving a lasting impression of a radiant child prodigy nurtured by the fiery spirit of Gary, Indiana. At this time, the musical prodigy was hailed as a little angel, bringing pride and solace to an entire black community, with a pure, original beauty untouched by any of Hollywood's harsh standards. But then that purity was crushed under the cruel wheels of a system that only knew how to exploit and discard. Let's face the horrifying truth in the second image. A Santa Barbara Police Department archive dated November 20th, 2003. This is the scene of a complete breakdown, both in appearance and humanity. Beneath the inscription, "Booking number 621785, we no longer see a musical icon, but a 45-year-old man with a deathly pale face, a result of vitiligo and countless skin-peeling treatments. His once vibrant, broad nose is now a grotesquely narrow, sharp point, a stark contrast to his unnaturally bright red lips and sharply tattooed eyebrows. His once hopeful, sparkling eyes are now two deep, dark holes filled with shock, weariness, and a profound, bone-chilling loneliness. Behind this haunting mugshot lies the collapse of a fictional kingdom called Neverland. Just hours before police cameras captured this haggard face, more than 70 officers raided Michael's mansion, searching every corner for evidence to support the shocking child sexual abuse allegations. This was the moment his illustrious career was plunged into a mire of scandal, as public trust was torn apart by the harsh testimonies of those he had once helped. The disfigurement in this photograph is a reflection of a soul crumbling under the weight of sedatives used to escape trials, interrogations, and the fear of blackmail. Michael Jackson walked into that police room not as a proven criminal, but as a victim of a system of fame that had molded him into a monster and then nonchalantly placed him on the pyramid of public opinion, leaving behind a glorious but tragic legacy of a man who had lost his roots in exchange for a crown of thorns. Let's face the face once cherished by the entire nation of America, Frankie Lymon. At 13, this boy possessed not only an angelic voice, but also an unbelievably perfect appearance. A radiant smile, revealing perfectly white teeth, and eyes sparkling with the pure light of a child who believed the world was all rosy. Record labels saw him as an open-air gold mine, a symbol of innocence that could be cashed in. But when the stage lights dimmed and the curtain closed, we were faced with a horrifying scene of ruin. Can you recognize the ravaged figure in the next frame as the musical prodigy of yesteryear? That innocence has been crushed and replaced by dark, gaping holes between his teeth, a stark testament to calcium depletion and the unconscious blows from drug-induced stupors. The missing front tooth symbolized the downfall of a child prodigy. It exposed the exorbitant price of years spent clinging to heroin and cocaine to escape the pressures of fame. The soaring voice that once captivated millions was now just an aftershock of the past, leaving behind a weary, prematurely aged face of an addict teetering on the brink of collapse. The music industry had drained Frankie's innocence to the last drop, then carelessly discarded him like a broken toy as his voice began to crack during adolescence. Frankie Lymon ended his life at 25 on the cold bathroom floor, a syringe still embedded in his arm. It wasn't simply an overdose, but the end of a soul consumed by fame, leaving behind a lonely ruin whose name no one wanted to remember.
Do we ever stop to wonder if we are truly honoring an artistic legacy, or are we merely curious guests paying to witness a massacre of human dignity in the name of entertainment?
In the history of world music, few falls have been as painful and prolonged as the tragedy of Jackie Wilson, the man known as Mr. Vibrant. Imagine a legend standing at the pinnacle of glory, suddenly struck down by fame amidst the applause of thousands of spectators, only to spend his final years in a prison of his own body. Go back to the 1950s and 1960s, the time when Jackie Wilson dominated the music charts and was a familiar face on the most glamorous stages of New York or Las Vegas, a dapper Jackie Wilson amidst the dazzling lights in his high-end tailored suits, his meticulously styled hair reflecting the stage lights, and a mouth always wide open to sing those mesmerizing octaves that captivated millions of hearts. The elite and top-tier celebrities of the time were willing to pay astronomical sums just to breathe the same air as a legend at the height of his career. Jackie Wilson's allure was like a musical religion. His masterful spins and confident demeanor not only created unprecedented box office hits, but also earned him the reverence of the black artistic community as a god who ushered in a new era for rock and roll and soul. However, behind the dazzling velvet curtain and blinding lights, fate had already prepared a bitter feast that even the god of soul music could not refuse. On that fateful night in 1975, in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, amidst the frenzied atmosphere as thousands of spectators held their breath watching his skillful spins, Jackie Wilson uttered the fateful words, "My heart is breaking." Tragically, at the very moment the applause was at its loudest, his life officially ended. A devastating stroke struck him down on stage amidst the thunderous applause. Fate played a cruel trick. Just as he finished singing about heartbreak, his very lifeline ruptured, plunging the energetic gentleman into a semi-coma that lasted for 9 long years until his death. This photograph reveals the devastating scene of a life's devastation, where a legendary figure is now a living ruin imprisoned within his own body. The real destruction begins when we uncover what transpired inside that cold hospital room. As the stage lights dimmed, those who claimed to be devoted fans began to reveal their true faces. Can you believe that Joyce Moore, a woman who always claimed to care most about Jackie, secretly photographed his frail body in the nursing home and heartlessly sold the images to tabloids for blood money? In the eyes of those vultures preying on fame, even when his breath was barely clinging to life, Jackie Wilson was no longer a human being, but merely a discarded commodity still valuable for exploitation. Even when the legendary singer's intellect had faded, he was still turned into a tool in a foul legal battle for custody, where his name was torn apart to determine who would ultimately possess the remaining wealth and power of a soulless being. Jackie Wilson rests in peace, but his tragedy remains a costly lesson, a chilling warning about the exorbitant price of immortality in the glamorous world of entertainment. During the 1950s, Big Mama Thornton embodied a dazzling and magnificent black rose in the pantheon of blues music. Her skin was smooth and velvety, reflecting the stage lights like precious black diamonds. Her eyes were clear and sharp, holding a sky full of hope. With her sweet, enchanting voice, the legendary singer always commanded admiration from fans for her beauty and talent, a rising musical icon. However, that dazzling aura turned out to be a cruel parasite, silently draining her lifeblood even at the height of her fame. The injustice of the entertainment industry exhausted her, and when the lights went out, Big Mama was left alone with bitter resentment and cheap bottles of liquor. Fame brought no wealth, only profound solitude, pushing this once noble woman into the clutches of evil. She began drinking to forget her betrayal, to fill the void of her slave contracts, and it was at this moment that the monster of addiction began to emerge, embarking on a journey to strip away and destroy the image of a genius in the most brutal way imaginable. Look at the raw and disgusting truth in her final years, where her once radiant beauty was mercilessly torn apart. The woman, once so vibrant, appeared emaciated, a sight that sent shivers down one's spine. Her once smooth skin was now gray, patchy, and wrinkled like dry bark, covering her clearly visible joints. Her sharp eyes had vanished, replaced by two deep, hollow, vacant, and lifeless sockets, staring blankly into space as if she had seen death approaching. Her cheeks were sunken, her thin, sagging neck with its shriveled flesh exposed the horrific ravages of poison and the collapse of a body starved both physically and spiritually. The image of Big Mama, emaciated and trembling, clutching her last cigarette before breathing her last in solitude and poverty, will forever remain a painful scar, revealing the truth that glory was never a saving light, but rather a fire that consumed humanity until only the ashes of despair remained. Let's admire the portrait of Phyllis Hyman, a woman whose beauty was likened to a goddess stepping out of mythology, with an impressive height and a captivating contralto voice that could move even the most hardened souls. With a delicate face, sharp eyes, vibrant lips, and the aura of a powerful diva dominating the Billboard charts, this was her heyday in the Broadway musical Sophisticated Ladies, earning a Tony Award nomination and captivating the world with her deadly charm. However, behind that dazzling spotlight, this talented artist endured a silent, emotional tragedy. Hollywood and the record labels of the time saw her only as a goldmine to exploit. They exploited her labor, but remained indifferent to the pain she was hiding. This silent destruction actually stemmed from the very glamorous spaces where the Broadway spotlight and prestigious record labels cast a veil of artificial glamour over her life. They forced her to maintain the image of a flawless, perfect diva, while indifferently turning a blind eye to the bipolar disorder and depression that were gnawing at her soul day by day. It was this forced portrayal of a happy star amidst extreme loneliness that pushed this talented artist into a self-destructive tragedy. She turned to food and alcohol as a temporary painkiller, a slow suicide to fill the immense void in her heart. As a result, when looking at photographs from the early 1990s, viewers will be shocked to see a completely different Phyllis. Her face was heavy and swollen, a testament to long nights of sleeplessness and the destructive effects of stimulants. The tragedy of utter despair, though concealed beneath elegant attire and a stylish, wide-brimmed hat, could not hide the cruel reality. A body aching and worn out, consumed from within by the radiance of fame. Eyes that once captivated millions now reflected a heart-wrenching emptiness and weariness of someone who had completely surrendered to fate. On June 30th, 1995, in her New York apartment, just hours before her performance at the Apollo Theater was due to begin, Phyllis chose to end her life with sleeping pills, thus ending her tragedy at the age of 45. The world hailed me as the king of elegance, but behind the velvet curtain, I was just a wretched man, burning my lungs for a little warmth from empty applause. That was the bloody and tearful confession of Nat King Cole, the man who sacrificed his life to color 20th century music. In the previous photograph, we see a dazzling empire of the 1950s, a powerful, polished face in a meticulously tailored suit, possessing a smile that could soothe an era riddled with cracks. However, that very dazzling aura concealed a destruction silently gnawing away at him from within. The subsequent photograph is no longer a portrait of a legend, but the scene of a human slaughter. Lung cancer, the result of burning 3 packs of cigarettes a day to maintain his golden voice, dealt a fatal blow. His body was in a state of cruel decay. His skin was grayish, his hollow cheeks had turned into dark, ominous pits. His once radiant eyes were now sunken and weary, and the sagging skin of his neck covered his bones in a pitiful way. The stark truth was that at 45, Nat King Cole didn't die from audience rejection, but from being too devoted to a deadly habit called maintaining fame. You are admiring Tammi Terrell, the most radiant and magnificent flower in the Motown music garden of the 1960s. Let your gaze linger on this photograph, a flawless, velvety beauty of color, burning with the vitality of youth. Those large, dark eyes seem to hypnotize, drawing us into a world of desire as she sings the timeless love song, Your Precious Love. Tammi at that time embodied proud sensuality, passionate like a fine wine that captivated Hollywood. But hold on tight to this magnificent image, for with just one more breath, this dazzling radiance will shatter as if it never existed. Behind that brilliant velvet curtain, a cruel death sentence was silently written, tearing apart the magnificent silk of fate. Do you recognize the frail, small figure sitting quietly at the table? The very same radiant flower of Motown. This is no longer the embodiment of charm, but the scene of a life-ending execution by a malignant brain tumor. Her once glossy black hair, the pride of a star, has vanished, replaced by a disheveled, dry head, the result of the brutal effects of chemotherapy and major surgeries. The light in her eyes, once mesmerizing millions, has faded, replaced by the dull, weary look of a body slowly devoured by death. The cruelty is further evident in the moment she sits before the mirror. Once a magnificent dressing table for a star, now cluttered with bottles of medicine and medical instruments. The image of the woman tending to her remaining hair evokes profound sorrow. A diva who once captivated the world is now unable to care for herself. Her face is beginning to show signs of swelling and disfigurement, the consequence of 8 painful brain surgeries. Tammi Terrell passed away at the young age of 24, right at the height of her hit song, Ain't No Mountain High Enough. This final photograph not only captures a disease, it is a heart-wrenching indictment of how fame drains a beauty, then nonchalantly leaves that dark rose to wither in the darkness of pain and loneliness. Look at these 2 portraits and ask yourself, are we admiring a legend or witnessing the scene of a soul-killing incident that lasted for decades? The person I want you to confront is Billie Holiday, the woman known as Lady Day, the melancholic voice who redefined the soul of jazz music but ended her life in a raw, breathtaking tragedy. In the first frame, we see Lady Day at the height of her reign. The diva was always associated with the image of a pristine white gardenia in her hair, her smooth, elegant skin, her gentle, round black eyes, and the radiant, proud smile of a diva surrounded by a dazzling aura. At that time, the prestigious Downbeat magazine devoted countless pages to praising her beauty and talent, proclaiming her the most magnificent voice of all time. But turn off those melodious tunes and prepare yourself to witness a screaming reality in the next photograph, where the glamour has directly consumed a life once longed for and celebrated. This 1947 police report, Mugshot, is the on-site report of a human execution by cocaine and alcohol. The pristine white gardenia, a symbol of pride, has been completely crushed, replaced by disheveled hair and a gaunt, pale face that is almost unrecognizable. The eyes, once praised for containing a whole sky of art, stirring countless hearts, are now just two dull, empty pits, exposing the despair of a soul drained under the terrible weight of fame and talent. It was easy to see that her once even, white teeth, ravaged by cocaine and a long history of heavy drinking, were now stained, crooked, and falling out, a horrific collapse for a diva who had once been the epitome of elegance on magazine covers. The aura that had once shone brightly on her career had now turned into a corrosive acid, leaving behind a desperate, lifeless Billie Holiday. In 1959, the legendary diva died a haunting death. In her hospital bed from the devastating complications of malignant liver cancer, surrounded by police on drug possession charges, with only 70 cents in her account and $750 taped to her leg, the last money she had secretly hoarded for her final days. Let's rewind to the glorious 1960s, where David Ruffin shone under the Motown lights as an irreplaceable symbol of elegance. In his prime, he embodied the quintessential gentleman with his signature thick-rimmed glasses. In his perfectly tailored suits and neatly tied bow ties, David was the gold standard of black male beauty at the time, a dashing romantic who captivated millions. However, behind the soaring high notes of the love song My Girl lay a harsh reality, where the glamour had turned into a nightmare. When the lights went out, David Ruffin didn't return to his opulent mansion, but instead sank into the dark abyss of his devastating crack cocaine addiction. This was no longer the face of a star, but the portrait of a man being called by death. His once dashing face was now gaunt and frightening, his skin darkened by stimulants and his eyes vacant behind sunglasses. A desperate attempt to conceal the exhaustion of a body drained to its very core. In his final interview in 1991, shortly before his body succumbed to an overdose and he was left at the hospital door as an anonymous figure, David Ruffin uttered words seemingly drawn from the depths of his own despair. "I was once on top of the world, but it turned out to be a cliff, and I fell without a parachute to cling to." In May 2002, at a celebratory event in Los Angeles, the public was shocked by the appearance of Barry White, then at the height of his career with his recent Grammy Award, but in a completely different state. He was no longer the imposing, powerful man with the confident smile he usually displayed on the big stages. Instead, the media and fans were confronted with a painful reality. His face was beginning to show signs of puffiness, his eyes clouded with fatigue, signs of high blood pressure silently ravaging his body even under the brightest spotlight. The situation reached its peak in early 2003 when a final candid photograph of him was taken, revealing the complete decay of an icon. No longer the glamorous king of soul, Barry White appeared with a gaunt face, sallow skin, and eyes heavy with the helplessness of his constant dialysis treatments. This shocking change immediately created a huge stir in the media, prompting public questioning. Was the dazzling spotlight merely a facade concealing a life drained of oxygen in pursuit of fame? This event forced us to reflect and ask ourselves in a very real way, does fame truly bring happiness, or is it just a sweet trap that makes people chase after applause while forgetting the cries for help from their own bodies? In our twilight years, we understand that no amount of money or adoration is as valuable as a good night's sleep and a healthy body. Barry White dedicated his life to warming our hearts, but it seems that the greater his fame, the higher the price he paid in terms of physical well-being. Looking into those weary eyes in that final photograph, a heartbreaking truth emerges. When health is failing, even worldly glory cannot alleviate the pain. He passed away in July 2003, leaving behind a painful void, a reminder of a time when he had been too indifferent to himself, solely focused on shining brightly under the stage lights. In the history of American entertainment in the mid-20th century, Joyce Bryant was a sensation, hailed as the Black Marilyn Monroe or the Queen of Silver Hair. The previous image takes us back to the glorious 1950s, where Joyce appeared with her iconic silver hair, flawless skin, and breathtaking curves in a form-fitting silk dress. At 25, she was more than just a singer. She was a warrior who single-handedly shattered racial barriers in Miami Beach. Despite the chilling threats from the KKK, who had hanged and burned her effigy before a performance, Joyce proudly took to the stage at the Algiers Hotel, becoming the first black artist to perform and stay at luxurious venues previously off-limits to people of color. However, that dazzling glamour was the very spark that most brutally consumed her life. In the shadows of entertainment history, Joyce Bryant's tragedy is not merely the fading of a star, but the scene of a haunting massacre of human dignity documented in Joyce Bryant, the Lost Diva documentary. There, we don't see a star, but a torn soul, bitterly recounting years of dignity trampled upon by the specter of discrimination and the cruel pressure of fame. This destruction is brutal because it not only stripped away her humanity, transforming a glamorous black Marilyn Monroe into a worn-out, aged woman unrecognizable, but also carried out a thorough historical brainwashing. The world ruthlessly stripped the public of all memory of an iron woman who single-handedly confronted the aggression of the KKK to pave the way for black artists in Miami Beach. Fame killed Joyce Bryant twice. First, by exploiting her beauty as a tool for profit, and second, by erasing her name from the public consciousness the moment she was no longer useful. The following photograph is the most stark evidence of a life drained to its last drop of blood before being carelessly thrown into a deep abyss, leaving behind a forgotten diva as a lingering ghost in belated documentaries. It is the face of a victim consumed to the bone by the glare of fame, a powerful indictment of the cruelty of the entertainment industry. Teddy Pendergrass, once a captivating icon in soul music history, with his muscular physique and powerful presence that could melt millions' hearts, had his glory extinguished by a cruel sentence at the height of his fame. On the fateful night of March 18, 1982, in Philadelphia, Teddy's Rolls-Royce Silver Spirit unexpectedly lost control, veered across the median, and crashed into two roadside trees. The horrific collision crushed the luxury car and fractured the singer's cervical vertebrae, leaving him quadriplegic in an instant. This tragic scene was not just a traffic accident, but the beginning of a grueling journey in a wheelchair. Behind the image of Teddy performing in a wheelchair with Ashford and Simpson is not a miraculous resurrection, but the scene of a brutal psychological battle. From a captivating heartthrob, the loss of control over his body plunged him into extreme depression. Teddy once admitted that he had fallen into such darkness that he contemplated suicide, unable to accept the image of a disabled person dependent on others for even the most basic needs. His eyes in the photo carry the heavy burden of a soul clinging to the last vestiges of identity of a crippled legend. But the harshest truth lies in the toxic rumors surrounding this accident. Public opinion at the time raised a shocking question. Was that loss of control truly a random accident? Or was it a brutal purge related to the power struggle for fame and control behind the scenes? The 1963 photograph depicts Esther Phillips at the peak of her rebirth with the hit song, "Release Me." She is an uncrowned queen with sharp eyes, full, vibrant lips, and an aura of power. But the harsh truth lies in the fact that to achieve that confidence, Esther carried the ghost of the past. She was turned into a money-making machine from the age of 14 under the name Little Esther, and began to sink into heroin addiction as a child to cope with the immense pressure of early fame. Looking at the 1980s photograph, we see no trace of time, but the traces of a biological slaughter. Sitting before a stained dressing mirror, Esther is no longer the glamorous diva, but a living ruin trying to gather the last fragments of her dignity. Her gaunt face, with its dull, teary eyes, wasn't from sadness, but from the utter exhaustion of her nervous system after decades of heroin and alcohol addiction. Her thin, trembling hands, resting beside a glass of liquor and a jumble of makeup, were evidence that Hollywood had drained her voice and then nonchalantly left her to self-destruct. Her dark, sagging skin and forced smile revealed teeth stained by the effects of drugs. This was the painful price a genius forced to grow up in the darkness of addiction. Esther Phillips died at the age of 48 at a public hospital in Los Angeles from acute liver and kidney failure. This final photograph is the most powerful indictment. It not only captures an addict, but the moment a soul was devoured by fame from the age of 14 until her last breath. Among the list of stars who faded prematurely, Jean Anthony Ray's story is like a supernova explosion. Dazzling enough to blind the galaxy, yet draining all his energy in the blink of an eye. This wasn't the slow ravages of old age, but a devastating crash of fame that struck too quickly, leaving behind fragments of a human being that could never be mended. Look at the picture from his youth. It's Leroy Johnson from the 1980 film Fame. At 18, Gene embodied wild energy with his radiant eyes and mischievous smile. A natural dance prodigy who conquered the world with his toned muscles and the confident demeanor of a shining, rough diamond. However, that aura became a poison for an immature soul. His sudden fame plunged him into a whirlwind of partying and drugs in New York nightclubs. The photograph later revealed the scene of his devastating downfall. A gaunt face, thinning, disheveled hair, and a deep, weary gaze of someone who had completely surrendered to fate. The price of shining too early under the Hollywood sun had turned him into a living ruin, abandoned by the entertainment industry when his exploitable value was exhausted. Gene died in 2003 at the age of 41 from a stroke and HY5 complications, forgotten. He left behind a haunting warning. Sometimes the brightest light is the one that burns us the fastest. Melba Moore, a Broadway gem, an icon of elegance and purity for Black women in the 1970s. In her prime, she embodied the perfect American dream: smooth, radiant skin, sparkling, hopeful eyes, and a dazzling smile that could light up the prestigious Tony Awards. In classic black and white photographs, Melba exuded the aura of a queen: full lips, long curled eyelashes, and an unmistakable air of power and nobility. However, that aura was sometimes just a thin veil concealing a tragedy of brutal betrayal. The tragedy struck in 1991, a devastating fall when the husband she trusted completely tricked her into signing papers that stripped her of all her assets, plunging a superstar into homelessness overnight. The subsequent physical devastation of Melba Moore was a horrific visual shock. Look closely at the current photo. The former brilliance has been replaced by the listless, lost look of a soul that has tasted too much bitterness. The face that was once a Broadway beauty icon now gives way to deep hollows and dark skin marked by the wrinkles of hardship. Especially the gaunt, bony neck is what a superstar who once held the pinnacle of glory must endure, the stark evidence of the severe weight loss during the dark days when she had to rely on social welfare to survive. This tragic downfall shook the American media in 1991. The New York Times dedicated an entire page to it with the scathing headline, "From Broadway beauty icon to the haggard face of the homeless, who assassinated Melba Moore's beauty and soul?" In the quiet space of golden memories, the brilliant sound of Vesta Williams' voice still lingers, but her radiant image from the 1980s is now just a fragment of sorrow. Once the embodiment of transcendence with her wide vocal range and boundless energy, Vesta entered Hollywood with all the purity of a great musical soul. Yet, behind the mesmerizing spotlight lay a silent crime scene, where the strict beauty standards of American society began a journey of dissecting and trading the soul of a woman of color for recognition. The destruction of her fame didn't come from direct confrontations, but rather from the cruel coercion when Vesta was forced by society into an extreme weight loss regimen, compelled to lose over 45 kilograms just to avoid being cast out of the entertainment industry. This is not simply a story about aesthetics, but an indictment of the discrimination and immense pressure placed on black artists, those forced to deform themselves to fit the mindless molds imposed by Hollywood. In later images, though a smile remains, her face reveals exhaustion, a body drained of oxygen and vitality to maintain an illusory, perfect form. Her quiet death in 2011 in a California hotel room at the age of 53 was the final bell for a life of beauty abandoned by fame. Vesta Williams did not die in a tragic accident, but rather slowly perished over decades of struggling to shine in a society that prioritized consuming beauty over empathizing with the artist's suffering. She is living proof that when glory becomes a slow death sentence, it will steal your last breath amidst the indifferent gaze of the world. How many of you still remember the face once considered the muse of the 90s small screen? The woman whose appearance seemed to make time stand still with her dignified and self-respecting demeanor. Maya Campbell's downfall wasn't simply a slip. It was a silent scream that lasted for decades in the heart of glamorous Hollywood, where the most magnificent flower was stripped petal by petal until only a withered root remained on the roadside. Look at the picture first to see Maya Campbell at the peak of her cinematic beauty, a girl with silky, smooth brown skin, bright black eyes, and a radiant smile that could brighten an entire neighborhood in the house. There, Maya was more than just an actress. She was the embodiment of hope, a role model for a generation of young, intelligent black women, a princess of the community with a bright future unfolding before her. But then let horror take over your mind as you confront the reality of the following photograph, the scene of a soul torn apart by schizophrenia and the devastating effects of drugs. This is no longer the ethereal beauty of a movie star, but a frail, emaciated woman with almost all her teeth missing, matted, disheveled hair, and a vacant, wild gaze amidst the squalid streets of Atlanta. Look at the thin hands that once cradled prestigious scripts, the trembling shoulders, and the disheveled appearance as she begged for loose change at the gas station. It is the image of a complete breakdown of humanity, where the machine of fame had cast her aside the moment the cracks in her mind began to show. Behind this utter degradation lies a painful tragedy of abandonment. Maya not only struggled with addiction, but was also a victim of bipolar disorder, a condition never properly understood within an entertainment industry that only worshipped superficiality. The culmination of this suffering was the release of humiliating videos, where people mocked the madness of a woman who was once the pride of countless black families. For audiences who have experienced enough ups and downs like us, watching Maya Campbell is watching the cruelty of a society that readily celebrates your success, but will casually turn its back, even ridicule, when you fall prey to your inner flaws. Maya is a poignant reminder that, without a foundation of faith and the genuine support of community, even the purest flowers can be crushed by fame and fall into the darkness of depravity. We are witnessing the horrific downfall of Bobby Brown, the bad boy who single-handedly burned down his R&B throne for a one-way ticket to the hell of addiction. The previous photo takes you back to 1988, the height of his album Don't Be Cruel, a rising rap star, proud and edgy, with a haughty smile and the aura of a king holding the world in his hands. But in reality, it was just a perfect disguise for a soul already subdued by the devil of excessive fame. Be brave enough to look at the devastating destruction in the following photo. This is the result of using white death and strong alcohol to blacken his life. Years immersed in the dream world of Whitney Houston transformed his glamour into a corrosive acid that utterly devoured his body. His face was now shockingly disfigured, sagging skin, dull, lifeless eyes, evidence of a body drained to the bone after desperate attempts to escape reality. The ultimate tragedy lay not only in Bobby's withered face, but in the fact that he was the sole survivor, witnessing the spotlight devour his dearest loved ones one by one in the same deadly scenario. In 2012, the world was stunned when Whitney Houston, his wife, who had shared his struggles with the glitz and glamour and addiction, was found dead in a hotel bathtub with drugs in her bloodstream. Tragically, that cruel fate repeated itself just 3 years later with his daughter, Bobby Christina Brown. She too died in a bathtub, putting an end to a generation drained to the brink by glory and drugs. Consider the haunting transformation of Nipsey Hussle, a legendary rapper, a visionary businessman, and an icon of hope in Los Angeles. He was not just a musical artist, but a hero of the black community, who used his fame to revitalize the impoverished neighborhood where he was born. Yet that very fame ultimately crushed his identity in the most cruel way. 15 years later, at the 2019 Grammy Awards, just weeks before the horrific tragedy, the world no longer recognized the innocent-eyed teenager Ermias Asghedom once was. Reporters' lenses captured the portrait of a man consumed by the dark shadow of fame, a soul dying in the gilded cage of glory and street violence. The painful truth is that glory brought no peace. It plunged Nipsey into a suffocating vortex between the responsibilities of a star and the relentless grip of the Rollin' 60s neighborhood Crips. His face bore the marks of exhaustion, his eyes dull and listless, undeniably the scars of extreme anxiety and sleepless nights spent carrying an entire community on his shoulders. The intricate tattoos covering his neck and face appeared as a desperate shield, concealing a shattered soul and raising suspicions of drug use as a temporary escape from reality. In 2019, when Nipsey Hussle was murdered by gunfire outside his shop, ending his life at the age of 33, it left behind a haunting question. Was this glory salvation for an entire community, or merely a lavish altar where the artist was forced to sacrifice his own soul and life in exchange for worldly adoration? In the world of smooth G-funk rap, Nate Dogg was once dubbed the King of Choruses. But what happened when that powerful voice suddenly faded, leaving behind a scene of shocking exhaustion? This is the tragedy of struggling under the suffocating weight of fame until the body truly collapsed. Look at his younger photo, a sharp face, confident, piercing eyes beneath his signature baseball cap. At that time, Nate Dogg was a symbol of strength, with the calm yet authoritative demeanor of an artist who had received 4 Grammy nominations. He appeared like a god of melody, radiating an aura that commanded respect. However, the cruel devastation came after years of dedication and the invisible pressure of the harsh music industry. The following photograph reveals a heartbreaking reality. The once powerful man is gone, replaced by a living wreck, struggling hour by hour. The horrific turning point began with a series of strokes in 2007 and 2008, stripping him of everything, from his innate singing talent to his basic mobility. The image of Nate Dogg in a wheelchair, his face gaunt and his gaze vacant, is proof of his body's exhaustion. The destruction is evident in his eyes, once filled with pride, now a hollow void reflecting the weariness of a man who has surrendered to fate. The price Nate Dogg paid for his dazzling fame was a lonely end. Despite his struggles, the internal decay of his body was irreversible. Until his last breath in 2011, Nate Dogg left behind a valuable lesson. Fame can take you to the top, but it can also burn you down and leave you in the shadows once the spotlight fades. In the brutal world of gangsta rap, Eazy-E was more than just an artist. He was a godfather, wielding absolute power, who molded the ruthless records empire and transformed NWA into an immortal icon. At his peak, he was enveloped in a protective aura, evident in his piercing eyes, always hidden behind classic sunglasses, and his arrogant demeanor, defying all societal norms. However, that very dazzling light blinded him to the dark shadow of HY5/AIDS, silently devouring this emperor in the most brutal way. Let's lift the veil to see the harsh truth sealed within this photograph from February 18, 1995. At the Ruthless Records studio, Eazy-E stands among his collaborators and NWA members, a scene that seems like a continuation of glory, but is actually the site of a silent execution. Behind the forced smile captured on camera lay a body decaying from within. Death didn't knock. It was already there, seeping into the artist's bloodstream as he clung to the last notes of his life. The devastating effects of fame were fully revealed just 1 month later. On March 26, 1995, the world was shaken when the Godfather fell at the age of 30 due to complications from HR5/AIDS. The studio photograph suddenly became a haunting visual testament, exposing a horrific paradox. Glory can transform a person into a lord on the musical throne, but it is also a tranquilizer that makes them forget the fragility of life amidst the dark, decadent corners of superstar life. Eazy-E's departure leaves behind a costly lesson. The pinnacle of fame is sometimes just the beginning of a bottomless abyss, where even the most dazzling crown cannot buy a single breath in the face of cruel fate. There are assassinations that don't require guns, but are carried out with overwhelming praise, followed by ruthless abandonment. And the following image you are about to see is the scene of a soul drained to the point of disfigurement. We were so proud of Whitney Houston's magnificent stage at the 1986 Grammy Awards, where the previous image captured the moment a true goddess stepped into the spotlight in a sky blue dress, her smooth, honey brown skin radiant. There, she embodied perfection, a sophisticated black beauty with a smile that could soothe all prejudices, making even the most rigid white world bow down in acknowledgement of the Voice's reign. But prepare for a shock as you confront the harsh reality in the second image, a moment of fame that has returned to us a frail, trembling body. This was no longer the woman who had captivated the hearts of mankind, but a skeletal figure with horribly gaunt cheeks, her once radiant skin now gray and mottled with the scars of sleepless nights immersed in cocaine and alcohol. Her eyes, once sparkling with hope, were now two deep, vacant holes beneath smudged makeup, a direct consequence of a toxic marriage to Bobby Brown and the immense pressure to maintain a clean, artificial pop princess image for a bloodthirsty entertainment empire. Deep beneath this dilapidated exterior lay the tragedy of confinement. Whitney was trapped between being America's darling and the yearning to live authentically as her wounded self. The culmination of this suffering was the shocking 2002 interview, where the world was stunned to hear her exclaim, "Crack is whack," while her frail body trembled beneath luxurious furs. The final photograph, with her disheveled hair and vacant gaze, is proof that fame has stripped away her last shred of self-respect, transforming a magnificent swan into a broken-winged bird, desperately struggling in the mire of addiction. Looking into these wild, lifeless eyes, do you recognize the woman once hailed by the world as the heavenly voice? You are facing the portrait of Gail Fisher, a woman who used both beauty and intelligence to break down invisible barriers, establishing herself as the first black actress in history to win both a Golden Globe and an Emmy. Gail Fisher of the 1960s, the graceful black rose from the Mannix series, recently crowned at a local beauty contest, always captivated those around her with her vibrant, youthful beauty, radiant eyes, and confident, dazzling smile. But don't let the allure of that black rose deceive you. You will shudder at the raw and brutal reality of her downfall. Can you believe that this aged, weary face, as if she were already 70, actually belongs to a woman who had just reached 40. Her once flowing black hair, a symbol of her graceful beauty, has become gray, dry, and her cracked lips droop in utter exhaustion. What transformed a glamorous television queen into such a horrifying living ruin? The cruel truth is, Gail Fisher was discarded as soon as she had fulfilled her role as the decorative object Hollywood needed. To executives, she was merely a dazzling facade to showcase their artificial innovation. When the film Mannix was canceled in 1975, instead of being celebrated as a pioneer, she was cast off the red carpet overnight. Hollywood viewed her as a seasonal commodity whose commercial value had been exhausted, no longer capable of generating profit. This radical rejection pushed Gail into the abyss of drugs to escape reality, causing her skin and eyes to age horribly, like the scene of a soul-crushing execution. Gail Fisher passed away quietly in 2000, the inevitable end of a body that had been forcibly aged beyond redemption.
In the end, was it the law of time that destroyed them? Or was it the very glory that only knows how to worship icons while they are radiant?
Only to coldly turn its back once it has wrung them dry, leaving nothing but a lonely ruin in the shadows of oblivion?
In the world of flashing lights and vibrant disco rhythms, few could have imagined that the soaring notes of the family anthem, "We Are Family," would end in such a lonely and cruel silence. This is the tragedy of Joni Sledge, a woman who once made the world believe in the immortality of family and joy, yet she herself was worn down by the glare of fame until her last breath. Look at her early photos to see an icon of freedom in the late 1970s. With her flowing, tousled hair and radiant smile, Joni embodied the golden age of the Sisters Sledge Band. Her eyes sparkled with the intense vitality of a star at the pinnacle of the world, full of healthy and natural beauty. However, looking at later images, we no longer see a glamorous diva, but one facing the ruins of a life after more than 4 decades of carrying the Sisters Sledge name on her shoulders. This is the scene of a silent decline, where desperate efforts to maintain the family music empire have drained its last vestiges of energy. This devastation gnawed at Joni through years of relentless touring and simmering internal conflicts behind the scenes. Her once radiant complexion now feels heavy, her swollen face etched with the deep lines of chronic anxiety and exhaustion. Although she still tries to maintain her elaborate makeup and signature smile for the cameras, viewers can clearly sense the weariness of a body consumed from within by the glare of fame and heavy responsibilities. Her eyes have lost their carefree sparkle, replaced by a somber, melancholic look, as if clinging to faded memories. The most painful event occurred in March 2017, when the woman who once sang about the bonds of family passed away in solitude at her home in Phoenix, Arizona. His sudden passing at the age of 60 was not only an artistic loss, but also an indictment of the cruelty of fame. Joni sang, laughed, and dedicated himself until the very last moment, only to quietly collapse the moment the spotlight faded, leaving behind a weary legend whose life force had been drained by the glare of fame. In the tragic saga of fleeting beauty, Lark Voorhies' story carries a heart-wrenching poignancy, for the destruction here doesn't stem from decadent pleasures, but from a crack in her soul exacerbated by the glare of fame. Let's look back at the image of the mischievous Lisa Turtle in Saved by the Bell from the early 1990s. In her 20s, Lark Voorhies embodied sweetness with her smooth skin, large, sparkling eyes, and radiant smile that could brighten any frame. She was not only a talented actress, but also a source of pride and an ideal role model for young Black people at the time, representing intellectual, pure, and promising beauty. However, harsh reality silently shattered that radiant rose the moment the spotlight began to fade. The most devastating blow to Lark was her mental health breakdown, an event her family later confirmed as bipolar disorder. At a red carpet event in 2012, particularly during a controversial interview on Entertainment Tonight, Lark Voorhies' appearance was not merely a makeup disaster, but a stark embodiment of the devastating internal destruction. Viewers will hardly forget the once delicate face of Lisa Turtle, now grotesquely distorted by thick, patchy layers of makeup, a common manifestation of impaired aesthetic perception and behavior during periods of mental breakdown. Her expression was stiff, her lips tightly pressed together unnaturally, as if struggling to cope with a chaotic stream of thoughts within. Looking deep into those eyes that once captivated millions, we no longer see the sharpness, but only empty spaces, a vacant gaze and a constant aimless stare into the void. This is a characteristic sign of nervous system exhaustion and the side effects of high-dose psychiatric medications, leaving her listless and disconnected from reality. Behind every burst of laughter Bernie Mac brought to American audiences lay a death sentence being carried out daily on the dazzling stage. The painful truth was that the cruel allure of fame forced him into a deadly pact, exchanging public adoration for his last breaths. Instead of resting in a hospital bed to treat his autoimmune disease, sarcoidosis, Bernie was swept up in a whirlwind of grueling touring schedules and endless film projects, where fame drained the little resistance he had left. The devastation of fame lay not only in mental pressure, but also in physical exhaustion. Instead of rest and treatment, the dazzling spotlight and relentless work schedule directly stripped him of his last remaining strength. If you look closely at the close-up photo, you'll see the scene of a body screaming. Eyes that once blazed with the fire of humor are now tired, dull, and swollen around the eyes due to complications from uveitis. Ironically, the harsh stage lights that he adored were the very thing that caused him more pain and increasingly blurred vision. The tragedy culminated in a fatal blow in 2008 when his lungs, already hardened by illness, could no longer withstand an acute pneumonia attack, claiming Bernie's life at the age of 50. In the glamorous world of 1990s Hollywood, Lisa Nicole Carson was once a radiant rose, a perfect symbol of charm and innate talent. Her deep, expressive eyes, smooth, glowing skin, and breathtaking confidence captivated viewers in every frame. At that time, she was not only a star of blockbuster films like Ally McBeal and Ear, but also the embodiment of voluptuous beauty, with her ample bust and radiant, seductive smile that seemed ready to burn every gaze. However, behind that dazzling exterior lay a soul cracking under the relentless pressure of fame. Psychological upheaval swept over her like a raging flood, obliterating her glamour and plunging her into years of isolation. Look at the following image to see a stark reality, where the dazzling glow has been replaced by the invisible scars of a protracted psychological battle. No longer the alluring muse with the captivating gaze, Lisa Nicole Carson appeared with an appearance that left people speechless due to the drastic change. The tragedy began to unfold in the late 1990s when the suffocating pressure of maintaining a perfect image in Hollywood overwhelmed her mind. The initial symptoms were often mistaken for the strong personality of an artist, but in reality, they were the underlying currents of the illness, from extreme euphoria leading to impulsive behavior to prolonged periods of depression. The culmination of this breakdown came in 2000, when Lisa was officially diagnosed with bipolar disorder after a series of shocking public incidents, including being caught in a state of severe mental instability at a luxury hotel in Manhattan. The cause of her illness stemmed not only from genetic factors or brain chemistry, but was also triggered by her exhausting lifestyle and the relentless scrutiny of the media at the time. Instead of receiving sympathy, Lisa was ostracized by Hollywood and labeled a difficult actress to work with, plunging her into isolation and years of treatment in mental health facilities. During the 1970s and early 1980s, Toya Jackson embodied a magnificent black rose, a beauty of unparalleled elegance among black models in Hollywood. In her prime, she possessed naturally delicate features, with large, sparkling eyes and a healthy tanned complexion, exuding the aura of a top-tier supermodel on the runways. However, behind that dazzling beauty lay a tragic fate. She was trapped, a puppet, a money-making machine under the brutal control of her father, Joe Jackson, and later her autocratic husband. She was forced to expose her body, to become a sex symbol, to satisfy the ambitions of those who sought fame, while her individual identity was crushed under the enormous shadow of the Jackson family. The real nightmare began when LaToya decided to use plastic surgery to divorce her own blood, turning the operating table into an execution ground for her physical transformation. These horrific surgeries weren't a pursuit of beauty, but a desperate attempt to erase every trace of her tyrannical father from her face. She frantically underwent brutal procedures, reshaping her nose until it was grotesquely thin, raising her cheekbones to an unnatural, lifeless state, and performing extreme eyelid surgeries to shed her original racial identity. This was no longer cosmetic surgery, but a suicide of the self, where each cut stripped away a part of her soul in exchange for a plasticized form. The dazzling fame provided her with millions of dollars only to buy her a life sentence, transforming a vibrant beauty into a painful replica, a strange mask reflecting the tragedy of her younger brother, Michael Jackson. The stark truth revealed later was a scene of utter ruin, where the destruction of fame was clearly visible in every distorted feature. LaToya's face was now gaunt, with a strangely sharp nose and skin so taut it was impossible to express any genuine emotion. Gone was the glamorous black doll of yesteryear. Instead, she was a living ruin in the heart of Hollywood, a figure horrifyingly devoured by fame. Her eyes always reflected panic and alienation, as if she were trapped within the artificial face she had created for herself, a high price for denying her roots and attempting to escape the ghosts of the past. I spent tons of money on those damn drugs, and in return, I saw the people I loved gradually turn into monsters in my eyes. That was the bitter confession of Miles Davis, the man who used his trumpet to reshape the history of jazz music, yet couldn't prevent his own life from spiraling downwards. Looking at the previous photo, you see Miles Davis at his peak, a man exuding intelligence, arrogance, and extreme elegance in meticulously tailored suits. His eyes shone with confidence. His skillful hands could conduct the entire band and make millions of audience members hold their breath with every romantic note. But the more dazzling his fame, the more brutal its dark side. Behind the applause lay a reality rife with addiction and frenzied rage. Miles not only destroyed himself with drugs, but also allowed his obsession with fame to turn him into a suspicious individual, frequently unleashing his anger and violence on the very women who cared for him. This devastation is clearly evident in the following photograph. No longer a dashing gentleman, but a gaunt, emaciated man with deep wrinkles etched by exhaustion. His hands, once capable of creating timeless melodies, are now dry and trembling from illness and the ravages of time. His once bright eyes are now a deep, empty abyss, as if he were utterly exhausted after a long journey under the harsh spotlight. In the world of NBBA giants, Lamar Odom once stood tall at 2.08 meters, a prodigy so agile that he became the golden link that helped Kobe Bryant win prestigious championship rings. At his peak, he not only had tens of millions of dollars and a glamorous marriage to Khloe Kardashian, but also possessed a powerful appearance, smooth skin, a gentle smile, and a body considered a masterpiece of nature. But when the curtain fell, all that glory was merely a facade for one of the most brutal identity suicides in sports history. The storm of substance abuse swept through, transforming the once powerful god into a painful, surviving ruin. Exclusive footage and images that shocked the world revealed this devastating scene. Lamar lying motionless in a hospital bed, his face gaunt with sunken cheeks, his skin darkened from severe oxygen deprivation. The image of him lying in a coma, surrounded by tubes and ventilators, is a stark indictment of the devastating effects of cocaine on a once invincible body. His vacant, lifeless eyes are the undeniable sentence of the chemical that drained his spirit and left an empty soul in a weakened body. The most painful truth lies in the bright white smile Lamar is trying to display. It's not a gift from nature, but an expensive porcelain mask to conceal the true decay within. Cocaine has silently severed the blood vessels nourishing his gums, causing his natural teeth to rot and fall out, a chilling testament to the fact that fame can buy a new smile, but it cannot buy back the vitality destroyed from the roots. The tragedy culminated in October 2015 when Lamar Odom was found in critical condition at a Nevada brothel after overdosing on a mixture of cocaine and a sexual enhancement supplement. He fell into a deep coma, suffered multiple strokes, and experienced severe organ failure. Although Lamar narrowly escaped death, the image of a once illustrious sports star struggling for survival in the mire of depravity became a horrifying milestone. It was a moment when the glory faded, replaced by the cold light of surgery on a body drained of dignity and strength by blind, decadent pleasures. Look at Lawrence Taylor, not the giant sweeping through the NFL, but a stark example of how the spotlight can turn and consume its owner. If other stars are victims of fate, Taylor is a powerful indictment of the identity trading that occurs at the height of glory. Don't let the polite smile on the golf course deceive you. Look deep into those dull, yellowish eyes. In the medical and criminal world, that's the color of utter exhaustion, the result of over 20 years of being worn down by high doses of alcohol and stimulants. From his handcuffing in 1996 and 1998, a once proud black superhero has transformed himself into a living wreck, where every wrinkle on his face bears the taste of a string of mistakes. But what truly shocked and outraged the public was the period of 2009 to 2010. While the world was still reminiscing about a legend, Taylor plunged his reputation into the abyss with the child prostitution scandal. A national idol suddenly revealed himself to be a man spoiled by fame to the point of losing his most basic moral boundaries. The smiling photos from that later period were merely a forced facade, an attempt to conceal a shattered soul after years of serving time in prison and being ostracized by the community. In the history of American music, no one can replace the position of James Brown, dubbed the Godfather of Soul. This photograph embodies the most glorious years of James Brown's life, when he was just turning 30 in the 1960s. Look at that bright white smile and radiant face. It's the face of a man at the peak of his career, confident and full of life's zest, as if the whole world was in his pocket. The legendary singer's hair was meticulously styled, glossy like a crown, affirming his status as a proud king on the music stage of that era. However, that dazzling velvet curtain finally tore in 1988, exposing a bitter reality that none of us want to believe. This prison photo is the clearest evidence of how the tragedy of fame and glory crushed such an icon. Behind the legendary dance moves and the cheers of tens of thousands of fans, the Godfather of Soul appears on screen with a swollen face, weary, vacant eyes, and disheveled, unkempt hair. At 55, at a time when he should be receiving the utmost respect, James Brown stands there like a broken man, stripped of his last vestiges of pride and self-respect after a breathtaking chase with the police. His dazzling youth had become an invisible trap, plunging him into a spiral of addiction and insane loneliness. Looking at the heartbreaking contrast between his radiant smile at 30 and this distraught expression, we see the dark side of greatness. In a closed-door interview behind prison bars, when his remorse reached its peak, James Brown uttered bitter words that seemed to tear him apart. "Don't call me a legend anymore. Look closely. This is the price of having the whole world bowing at my feet. I sold my soul for applause, and now all that's left is a decaying corpse discarded in the dark corner of this prison." In the world of rap, DMX is more than just an artist. He's a thunderous roar from the darkest corners of the Yonkers, bringing chilling authenticity to music to soothe the pain of an entire generation. The previous photo takes us back to 1999, the year DMX made history by becoming the only artist to have 2 albums reach #1 in less than 12 months. At 28, he stood there with bulging muscles and a bare chest defying the storm, like an alpha wolf who had just conquered his territory. No need for flashy suits, his fiery, determined eyes spoke volumes. This was a warrior who had survived years of abandonment and abuse. In the darkest slums, to become the savior of hip-hop, a genre that was gradually losing its identity. To black audiences at the time, DMX was a brother, living proof that even with a scarred soul, we can still hold our heads high and make the world listen to our truth. But what was powerful enough to bring down a pack leader who once struck fear into the world, leaving behind only a broken soul, full of guilt, despair, and hopelessness? In the 2010 prison mugshot taken in Arizona, Earl Simmons, at age 40, his once sharp features were now gaunt and pale, etched with deep wrinkles of anxiety. His fiery eyes, which once ignited hope for an entire generation, were now a hollow void, reflecting the shattered state after countless stints in and out of prison for a series of heinous crimes. From drug possession and driving without a license to animal abuse and violence. It wasn't just a fall from grace, but the exorbitant price fame silently demanded. It gnawed away at a man's last vestiges of self-respect through repeated arrests. While the world celebrated DMX like a dazzling commodity on a display shelf, Earl Simmons was left alone in the shadows, clutching the wounds of his childhood that never healed. His addiction to stimulants was, in essence, a heart-wrenching cry for help, a desperate attempt to soothe a soul consumed by the glare of fame, transforming a legend into a prisoner trapped in his own spiral of sin. They bought a child's smile, only to receive the insane laughter of an addict carving a death sentence for his career. That's the harsh reality of Orlando Brown, once Disney's child prodigy, now just a ghostly figure in his criminal record photos. The previous photo takes us back to the golden age of That's So Raven, a smart, chubby boy with eyes that sparkled as if the entire Hollywood sky were bowing at his feet. The consecutive police ID photos, mugshots over the years, are bloody diary entries documenting a horrific journey of self-destruction. From dark, withered skin from methamphetamine abuse to grotesque tattoos covering his face and neck, a desperate attempt to completely erase the shadow of the Disney boy he once was. His once intelligent and mischievous eyes were now a wild, vacant stare, the vacant stare of someone consumed to the bone by schizophrenia and severe addiction. This devastation reached its peak when he tattooed the face of his former co-star, Raven-Symoné, across his chest, a bizarre act that shocked and terrified the public, revealing a soul completely lost. His teeth were ruined, his once radiant smile now replaced by forced pursed lips or maniacal laughter before the cameras of justice. Orlando Brown emerged as an open-air ruin of Hollywood, a child forced to ripen prematurely under the sun of glory, only to be watched as his outer shell began to rot, torn apart in an invisible despair. This is not just an ordinary case of addiction, but a symbolic act of human destruction, where each new tattoo is a stab in the vivid memories of millions of viewers from the 80s and 90s generations. How could a sex symbol who once dominated every disco dance floor in the 70s with her flawless skin and fiery vitality fall into such a devastating facial tragedy? The answer lies in the ravages of lung cancer, a cruel consequence of her long-term smoking habit, which silently assassinated Donna Summer's beauty even in the midst of her greatest glory. Look closely at the ruined state of a legendary beauty in her final days. Donna Summer wasn't frail in the usual way, but her body was severely disfigured and completely deformed. Her once delicate, radiant face under the flashlights was now swollen, puffy, and her features stretched to the point of losing their inherent grace. This is the painful sign of a body struggling through high-dose chemotherapy treatments, leaving the skin dull, lifeless, and the figure strangely gaunt and heavy. This stark reality is a direct slap in the face to the illusion of immortality in Hollywood. While the world still reminisces about a disco queen with her fiery curves, the real Donna Summer has to bear an unfamiliar form, where a forced smile remains, but her eyes bear the deep weariness of a being ravaged by disease, cell by cell. If beauty were a gift from the gods, would you dare accept it, knowing the price would be the horrific destruction inflicted by the devil on every inch of your delicate skin? That's the agonizing question that haunted the life of Pam Grier, the woman who once used her bewitching charm to drive an entire Hollywood film empire crazy in the mid-20th century. In the 1970s, this star, or coffee, appeared like a wild dream, her hair flowing proudly, her honey-brown skin glowing, and her fiery curves ready to burn every gaze. A religion of sensuality that anyone would yearn to kneel at her feet to admire its power. But hold your breath and prepare for an unforeseen shock. Stage 4, spinal cancer, was diagnosed in 1988, dealing a fatal blow with doctors giving her less than 18 months to live. The cruelty lay not only in the physical pain, but also in how it stripped her of her only weapon, her beauty. The harsh chemotherapy treatments, lasting for years, carried out a thorough slaughter. Her once sharp features became swollen, tired, and marked by the exhaustion of a depleted soul. This destruction was closely linked to the specter of fame, as the immense pressure of maintaining the image of a perfect sex symbol caused her to ignore her body's cries for help for extended periods. She silently battled death in the shadows, concealing her physical decline from the cameras for fear of the ruthless rejection by Hollywood, a place that craves only youthful bodies. In the treacherous world of entertainment, Lola Falana was once hailed as the First Lady of Las Vegas, an icon of glamour and innate talent capable of illuminating any stage she set foot on. The previous photograph takes us back to her most glorious peak, when she was the highest-paid female artist in Las Vegas. Look at her dazzling beauty, her large, expressive eyes, and her alluring lips, a portrait of an entertainment queen holding the world in her hands. She stood there amidst the dazzling lights and frenzied cheers, embodying the perfect Hollywood dream any girl could aspire to. But alas, that dazzling aura was a veil concealing a tragedy that was silently taking root, ultimately striking her down with the cruelest cruelty. The following photograph is no longer the image of a sparkling black pearl, but painful evidence of the physical and career-destroying effects of the insidious disease known as multiple sclerosis. The destruction was so thorough that it stripped away the ability to dance, sing, and even walk of a woman who considered the stage her very breath. Lola's tragedy was not just physical pain, but the killing of an artist's soul at the height of her glory. In a short time, the disease ravaged her nervous system, transforming a supple, energetic body into a frail one, struggling with spasms and bedridden. The harsh truth is painful. From a star sought after by the world, she was thrust into the darkness of loneliness and oblivion when her fame could no longer protect her from the cruel onslaught of fate. In our memories, Rick James was once an invincible Superman with his signature sleek black braids and arrogant demeanor, who redefined the allure of 80s funk. But behind those fiery melodies lay a cruel contract with crack cocaine and a life of debauchery bordering on morbid. Look closely at the ruins of this icon in this photograph from his final years. Rick James appears not as an artist, but as the scene of a self-destructive act. His once sharp, masculine face is now swollen and strangely heavy, with dark, oily skin, the bitter result of decades immersed in toxins and endless debauchery. The most jarring aspect is his eyes. The once brilliant eyes that set every stage ablaze are now dull, vacant, and lifeless. It wasn't just physical exhaustion, but the disoriented gaze of a soul drained by cheap, carnal pleasures and violent legal troubles. His dazzling fame granted him the privilege of living like a king, but that very arrogance became a sharp blade, severing his connection to reality, transforming his once majestic figure into a grotesque, heavy ruin. Rick James died in 2004 at the age of 56, leaving behind a bitter lesson about reality. When fame becomes a toxic drug, it not only robs one of their career, but also crushes both their physical and moral character, turning a brilliant icon into a deformed figure before the curtain even closed forever.
Are we truly celebrating an icon, or are we simply standing by, watching a black soul burn themselves to the ground just for a few fleeting moments of glory?
On a late night in 1989, Hollywood held its breath as Sammy Davis Jr. took the stage for his 60th anniversary celebration. He was no longer the mischievous artist with his flying tap dancing moves or his electrifying voice. Instead, the media cameras captured a horrifying scene of ruin. The dazzling aura of his past had transformed into a cruel X-ray, revealing the decay of an icon consumed by throat cancer. Look at the stark contrast between the two images. Once an icon with a broad, vibrant smile and unwavering confidence, Sammy, in his final years, appeared as a painful, skeletal sketch. His body was emaciated, his face withered, and his once smooth skin now rough and dark like dry bark. The tragedy lies not in his age, but in his eyes. The once brilliant gaze that captivated every stage is now sunken, vacant, reflecting the pain of a life helplessly watching its glory melt away into cruel rounds of radiation therapy. The cause of this downfall was not accidental. It was the result of a loan agreement to use his health to fuel his fame. To cope with the immense pressure of being a black artist, leading in an era of discrimination, Sammy chose alcohol and cigarettes as fuel to burn himself out. Smoking up to 4 packs a day for decades was the silent knife that fame had planted in his throat. And ultimately, that fashionable adornment turned into a malignant tumor that robbed the artist of both his voice and his identity. Sammy Davis Jr. passed away in May 1990, less than a year after that fateful night of honor. In the quest to uncover the brilliant yet scarred souls of black art history, Zora Neale Hurston, the renowned writer, anthropologist, and icon of the Harlem Renaissance, emerges as a resilient wildflower who used her pen to reclaim the dignity of an entire nation. This photograph transports us back to her golden age in the 1930s. Few could have imagined that this woman, once at the pinnacle of intellectual achievement, would be swept into a cruel vortex of poverty and baseless accusations that completely tarnished her reputation. When her glory faded, Zora was plunged into the darkness of destitution, where physical pain and the ravages of disease began to gnaw away at her last remaining strength. Her eyes, once blazing with determination, are now 2 deep, melancholic hollows, silent as a lake after a great storm, reflecting the shattered remains of a life that had given everything but ultimately ended up empty-handed. At nearly 70 years old, Zora appears as a miserable victim of her own glory, her face etched with the deep cracks of exhaustion. The harsh truth is painful. The world craved her intellect on the pages of her books, yet ruthlessly destroyed her reputation with humiliating accusations and ostracism the moment she was no longer useful. Going back to 1948, we see not just a scandal, but the scene of one of the most brutal acts of moral execution in history. An unfounded moral accusation of child abuse was unleashed like a sharp blade, turning Zora into a scapegoat for the fury of public opinion. In a single night, the intellectual empire she had painstakingly built throughout her life was utterly destroyed. Publishers fled in panic, Friends who had sworn allegiance suddenly turned their backs on her as if they had never known her, abandoning her amidst a whirlwind of coldness and humiliation. This destruction was so brutal that it stripped away all honor, pushing a cultural icon to the depths of decay. To cling to life, the woman who was once the Queen of Harlem had to bow down and accept menial jobs, hunched over sweeping garbage and scrubbing floors for the wealthy, those who nonchalantly trampled on the hands that had once written masterpieces of humanity without realizing it. At nearly 70 years old, Zora appears as a victim, drained to the last drop of blood by the very monster of glory she once nurtured, her face scarred with exhaustion and her eyes as melancholic as a graveyard of murdered dreams. In the pantheon of boxing legends, Sugar Ray Robinson is not just a name. He was a perfect war machine, a man who, in his gloves, dominated the kingdom of punches throughout the mid-20th century. The previous image takes us back to the 1940s and 1950s, where Sugar Ray appeared with a powerful, muscular body sculpted from cold steel, his eyes blazing with the murderous intent of an unbeatable king. It was a time of glory, surrounded by gleaming Cadillacs, luxurious tailored suits, and the fervent cheers of millions of black people seeking a symbol of strength. But look at the devastating destruction in the following image. This is no longer a champion, but the scene of a human massacre perpetrated by his own glory. Sugar Ray, in his final years in Los Angeles, appears with a vacant, empty face, his Alzheimer's disease having completely obliterated all memories of his past glories. The decay was so thorough it was horrifying. The once perfect fighting machine was now nothing more than a shriveled, decaying mass of flesh and bone, motionless in a cold wheelchair like a ghost forgotten by time. This tragedy was starkly painful. The man who had once conquered the world was ultimately brought down by the brain damage accumulated from the bloody battles fought for fame. He died in destitution, a victim drained to the last drop of life by the monster of glory, leaving behind the image of a legend utterly ravaged, lying alone in the forgotten shadows of a society that had exploited his power until his last breath. In the context of the 1890s, Ida B. Wells Barnett was more than just a journalist. She embodied an intellectual warrior with a dignified and serene beauty. Look into her eyes, large, deep, and with a direct gaze devoid of fear. These eyes had witnessed the most brutal injustices, yet retained the sharp intellect and proud indignation of someone who never bowed to adversity. Her face radiated composure, her skin radiant with vitality, a healthy complexion enhanced by her thick, powerfully styled black hair. The most striking feature was her tightly pursed lips, a resolute declaration that she would use her pen to shake an entire system of injustice. The outfit, with its high, intricately embroidered lace collar and elegant brooch, not only portrayed the image of an intellectual woman from the upper class, but also served as a spiritual armor, helping her maintain her composure amidst the storm of racial discrimination. However, this journey in search of justice came at a heavy price in terms of her physical appearance. The Twilight photograph reveals a painful reality. The proud young woman of yesteryear is gone, replaced by a soul drained by the terrifying pressure of survival. Her once smooth skin is now marked by deep wrinkles, bearing the scars of thousands of sleepless nights spent riding in fear of assassination. Her once flowing black hair has turned gray and withered under the weight of a lifetime of solitary struggle. The destruction here doesn't come from lavish parties, but from the cruel aura of a hunted woman. Did you know that behind that dignified facade, Ida was a woman portrayed by Hollywood and the contemporary media as a dangerous rebel? While other stars feared wrinkles, Ida faced the burning of her newsroom and the looming death sentence every time she stepped into the spotlight. The photograph of her in her twilight years is the scene of a relentless physical and mental torment that lasted for half her life. The spotlight is like the kiss of death. It warms you for a moment, then silently drains your soul until you are nothing but a lifeless corpse under the dazzling lights. Freda Payne uttered these bitter words while standing before the mirror in a Las Vegas dressing room, where she realized she was losing the battle against time. The destruction here wasn't the natural process of aging, but a deliberate slaughter of her physical form in the face of Hollywood's relentless pursuit of change. As the dazzling glow of the 1970s faded, Freda plunged herself into a trap of endless cosmetic surgeries, turning scalpels into her only belief in clinging to a past appearance. The harsh truth: these attempts at patching things up became the acid that completely killed her natural beauty, leaving behind a disfigured face with stiff, lifeless wrinkles. She is no longer an icon, but a miserable victim trapped in the very game she orchestrated, a melancholic soul stripped of her dignity merely to maintain a false persona under the harsh spotlight. The following photograph is the scene of a murder of humanity, where a legend desperately uses aesthetic fragments to conceal the chilling emptiness of a life utterly consumed by the glare of fame. In the history of entertainment, Deborah Wilson was once a volcano of energy, the uncrowned queen of the comedy show Made-TV, where she could transform any role into an explosive performance that would leave the entire audience breathless. The first photo shows her at her radiant peak, when fame was rolling out before her. It's a Deborah radiating power and vitality, with a confident, radiant smile and vibrant tattoos on her arms, symbols of a free spirit, a challenger of artistic boundaries. She stood there, full of life, like a magnet attracting all eyes with the proud aura of the brightest shining star in Hollywood. But the spotlight is a ruthless creditor, silently carrying out a brutal purge on the very person who created it. Looking at the second photo, we no longer see a queen of comedy, but only the devastated scene of an explosion of glory. The destruction was so thorough it was horrifying. Her once full, radiant face was now so gaunt that her jawbone was exposed, her eyes sunken like two black holes, reflecting the years of being brutally killed by the vicious cycle of addiction. Deborah's tragedy was not just a change in appearance, but a cruel destruction of her human form from within. To escape the suffocating pressure of the spotlight and the fear of being rejected, she fell into the trap of stimulants, an invisible acid that devoured her vitality, transforming a powerful being into a gaunt, pale, and pathetic victim. In the treacherous world of hip-hop, the Lady of Rage was once considered the sharpest, most thorny rose, a queen possessing unparalleled rap skills capable of defeating any male opponent. The first photo takes us back to her golden age at Death Row Records in the 1990s, when fame enveloped her like a magnificent suit of armor. In her vibrant 20s, she appeared confident, with sharp, ambitious eyes and the aura of someone about to conquer the entire music kingdom. It was the image of a radiant, polished artist, one who held the unwavering belief that talent would be her eternal ticket to escaping poverty. But look at the second photo. This is not the mark of age, but the scene of a horrific physical slaughter left behind by the glare of fame. The destruction here is not silent. It is evident in her disfigured, swollen face covered in stitches, the result of a body exhausted to the point of collapse, leading to complications such as meningitis and persistent seizures. Every muscle, every nerve cell of hers was devoured by the hunger of the entertainment industry in exchange for sensational hits, and then, when the storm of illness struck, she was nothing more than a lonely ruin in the cold, cruel abyss called glory. In the world of American television, Tamar Braxton was once a radiant rose, possessing captivating natural beauty, smooth skin, and delicate features that embodied the prestigious Braxton family. At her peak, she embodied unparalleled confidence, a rising star with a radiant smile and eyes full of ambition. However, ladies and gentlemen, behind the glamorous outfits and dazzling lights lay a silent beauty genocide, where the spotlight directly dissected its owner, Let's look directly at the harsh reality hidden beneath layers of makeup. Tamar's face in her later years was no longer a natural aging process, but a ruined scene of extreme cosmetic surgery. Her once vibrant skin is now stiff like a silicone mask. Her lips are deformed, and her cheekbones are abnormally prominent, the result of an addiction to plastic surgery to meet the absurd beauty standards Hollywood imposes on women of color. This is the cruel punishment of fame. It makes a beautiful woman disgusted with her own self, leading her to destroy her identity and become a soulless, industrialized product. What enrages and frightens us is the mental breakdown behind this disfigured appearance. In 2020, the world was shocked when Tamar was found unconscious after an attempted suicide due to the suffocating pressure of toxic reality TV contracts. The spotlight not only stripped her of her beauty, it also gnawed at her soul, turning a talented artist into a puppet controlled by dirty rating schemes. She is living proof that when a star is drained to the last drop of blood to feed public curiosity, all that remains is a surviving ruin forced to force a smile behind layers of expensive porcelain veneers, trying to conceal the shattered heart of a soul murdered by fame. In the world of rap and hip-hop, Lil Kim was once an unshakable icon, both in talent and bold confidence. Look at her early images, a queen of rap with natural, radiant beauty and vibrant energy. Her large, intelligent eyes, bright smile, and harmonious facial features created an irresistible allure, solidifying her unique position among the male artists of the time. However, behind the pride on stage lay a sad story of mental instability and the harsh price of living under public scrutiny. Lil Kim's downfall didn't stem from drugs or time, but from an obsession with her appearance and a desperate desire to change herself in search of acceptance. Look at her later photos to see the dramatic transformation. The Brooklyn girl of yesteryear is gone, replaced by a disfigured face due to excessive plastic surgery. Skin bleached, an unnaturally sharp nose, and a face stiffened like a mask. This is the scene of a silent beauty massacre fueled by past traumas. The cruel irony is that Lil Kim was already beautiful, but negative comments about her appearance and toxic relationships led her to believe she was never good enough. She spent half her life undergoing cosmetic surgery, only to ultimately lose the very look that made her famous. Her once radiant eyes are now obscured by layers of chemicals, reflecting a soul still struggling to find itself amidst the shattered pieces of fame. Lil Kim remains a legend, but her current appearance is a painful reminder of the destructive power of insecurity. It shows that fame can make a person great, but it can also push them down a path of self-destruction if they lack the strength of character to withstand the invisible pressures of popularity. Every time the needle pierces my skin, I don't feel pain. I only feel the fear of being temporarily pushed back, because in Hollywood, wrinkles are the death sentence for a legend. This blood-soaked, tearful monologue emanates from the hidden corner of a Turkish recovery room in 2024, where Katie Price has just undergone her 10th major surgery to reconstruct her face, which has been overloaded with plastic surgery. The previous photo shows Jordan of the 1990s, an original beauty icon with expressive eyes and radiant skin, who made British tradition bow down at her feet. But look at the scene of an identity massacre. In the following photo, this is no longer aging, but a self-destructive destruction of the human form. After more than 15 breast augmentations and countless drastic facelifts, Katie's face has become a dead zone of expression. Her eyes are grotesquely pulled back by the foxy eyes technique. Her lips are swollen, and her skin is as taut as a sheet of paper about to tear. Katie's tragedy doesn't lie in aging, but in her terrifying obsession with becoming invisible in front of the camera. She chose to transform herself into a strange creature, a willing victim of an addiction to perfection in exchange for a few cheap headlines from the media. The bitter truth is that while Katie tried to patch up the fragments of her beauty to cling to her fame, the entertainment industry saw her as an outdated commodity, a bizarre pastime to be dissected and ridiculed before being discarded into oblivion. It turns out that the glamour the world worships is actually just a blazing inferno, a place where artists have sacrificed their last drop of life for fleeting applause, only to be discarded like a desolate ruin the moment the lights go out. If these harsh truths resonate with you, please support us by liking, subscribing to our channel, and turning on notifications to continue our journey in unveiling the never-before-revealed dark corners behind the glamorous facade of Hollywood.